decided to make Gunga Din, which was an old property that RKO had had on the shelf, a script by Hector MacArthur, and I decided that I wanted George to direct. And George was quite anxious and willing.
The thing about Stevens was he could do comedy, he could do action, he could do westerns. There was no thing where you could say, oh, that's a George Stevens movie.
As a director, generally, he was wonderful at getting performances out of his actors and actresses.
He never gave you the sense of working under him or for him. You felt that you were working with him, that you were part of his team and he was part of your team, and we were all aiming for the same objective.
He had a great deal of feeling and emotion in his work and tremendous versatility.
The underlying idea for Gunga Din, of course, was the poem by Rudyard Kipling, Gunga Din. Originally, the script had been written to take place in this barracks with only a little bit of a look outside now and then at the mountains, and my father took it on the premise that it would be moved and be made outside on location in California. This appealed to him to take a big group of people up to Lone Pine, California, and shoot this movie. Since the script had been written to be an interior script, he needed to have a new version of it.
George took this old script of Hector MacArthur's, which needed plenty of work, and with the aid of a couple of his own men, Joel Sayre and Fred Gill, he developed the script a great deal.
They also were picking locations, and that part of the Sierras is one of the most wonderful locations and has a great similarity to the Khyber Pass in India.
George took a lot of trouble, as I'm sure you know and everybody else, over selecting locations, and had experts with him. And we had everything technically as correct as possible. We had a former judge from India come down from Canada to advise us on all the procedures, and military advisors and so forth. And he wanted to get the locations absolutely right, and he went to great trouble and actually did. Well, in my subsequent travels around the world, it happened more than once that I've come up against Indian friends. So, oh, I know that very well. I've been there. I used to spend my holidays right there in the Khyber Pass, right in the northwest frontier. I said, oh, no, you said it was in Khyber. Oh, you cannot fool me. I know it very well. Know it very well. Oh, you can get away with anything in the movies. I know about that. I said, no, we did get away with it.
We had written the script for Doug Fairbanks to play the role that Carey eventually played, and Carey to play the role that Doug played. Well, when Carey read the script, he came in and he said, I'd like to do the picture, but I'm not going to do it because I wouldn't dream of playing that flat role. I love the part that you're giving to Doug, the comedy role. So I said, well, there's no more to be said about it. You do it. We gave it to him. We switched Doug to the other role, and that's how we cast those two.
Cary Grant has such reserves and resources at both genuine acting and comic acting.
St. Marty roast beef is an Englishman's food. It accounts for the freedom that runs in his blood. For generous living to step to all good. Excuse me, mates. Da-da-da-da-da. Oh, the roast beef of England and all the old English roast beef.
Douglas Fairbanks Jr. was cast as Sergeant Valentine.
This is the 9th of May. I'm going with you, Mac, for 5 days, and good company I'll be. But at sunset on May the 14th, when my time is up, wherever we are, whatever we're doing, I'm gonna knock you two apes' heads together. Now, come on.
Pardon me, madam.
And the magnificent Victor McLaughlin was cast as Sergeant McChesney.
Go on, then you won't taste it. Oh, I know. You want your daddy to give it to you, don't you?
I don't know why they picked Sam Jaffe, who was a New York actor, didn't do all that much, but he was magical in it. How old was he? Was he 50? When was he 45? He was no kid. Well, it's a ridiculous piece of casting. It worked wonderfully.
Then there's the rather thankless role of the woman, which Joan Fontaine played. Joan was sort of the belle of the ball with all these masculine guys.
I mean, it was a wonderful bunch of performers.
Well, they took really what was a small army up to Lone Pine, California, and they built tents And they lived in those tents, and it got very cold at night, and it would get 110 degrees in the daytime. So it was a kind of a rigorous adventure. And since they didn't have the script completed, they had to start shooting while working on the script at night. My father started the first day with a little scene with Sam Jaffe and Cary Grant, and behind him there are, it looks like 500 or 600 regimental people doing a drill. And according to my father, he said he knew it was going to take them a long time to get that drill organized, so they had a few pieces of script, and they worked out this little scene where Cary Grant and Gunga Din really meet for the first time.
You want these fingers to fan the eyebrows, more like this. The breeze from them fingers ought to almost blow this eyebrow off. Now try it again. Very good indeed. Yeah, that one almost blew your turban off, didn't it?
Feeling that he knew perfectly well what he was doing at all times. Sometimes you'd wonder why the sudden comic gag in a situation which would otherwise be considered by anyone else a serious one. And you think, oh, he's going too far. You know, he's just having fun for himself. Obviously, this won't stay in. Until you found the whole thing assembled later on, the whole sequence. And you saw that he was absolutely right on the nose. He was absolutely right. His taste was impeccable.
Now, you're all under arrest.
This is a very sophisticated, robust kind of screen comedy that my father was schooled in when he was the cameraman and gag writer for Laurel and Hardy. And he always had that skill to bring a little humor to situations.
Hey, take your hands off that man.
You know, there's some battle scenes in the film. My father referred to it as cavalry scale improvisation, where they would spend days and days and days shooting that great battle on the roof, ending with the three men diving off into the river. Because they were figuring this out as they went along, this picture was getting more and more behind schedule.
And all of a sudden I found out that a location up at Lone Pine had run 20 days over a 10-day schedule. So on the 30th day, I decided to go up and talk to George about it, determined to do something. Had to. We were running out of money. I went up there on Saturday afternoon because we shot 6 days then. And when I got up there around 4 or 5 o'clock, I saw George up on top of the roofs shooting a very fine action scene with the boys. And I waved to him and he waved back to me. So time passed. I chatted with some of the fellows and George didn't come around.
So apparently he climbed down off the parallel, got in his car, and drove off.
Finally, I said to somebody, "Where's George?" He said, "Oh, didn't you know? He was supposed to meet somebody in town, and he left. He said he was sorry he didn't have time to talk to you. He didn't want to see me at all." So I said, there must be some way I can fool him. And there was. And I was waiting for him at 5:30 Monday morning when he got back. And I said, "Look, you've got X number of days up here on location with this enormous crowd. And if you don't finish by then, George, you're just going to have to come home without the rest of the stuff." Well, he finished by then.
They'd worked together for many years, and they had an understanding, and I think there was some affection there. It was really a kind of romantic treatment of a time in history rather than a serious exploration of that British colonial era.
Nothing moves me as much as what I call stupid courage. And the ending of Gunga Din, when Sam Jaffe says to Cary Grant, "The Colonel's got to know," had a phenomenal effect on me.
They're coming in.
The Colonel's got to know.
And then they honor him at the end with the wonderful line, which actually comes from the Kipling poem.
You're a better man than I am, Gunga Din.
this, of course, one should always remember, this is the greatest year in film history, 1930. And this is the Gone with the Wind year, the Wizard of Oz year. I mean, there are just an amazing number of flicks this year.
Well, isn't it true that of all the films made, and there were hundreds every year, that there's some of them that last, that meet that wonderful test, the test of time? And Gunga Din does it, I think, because it has humor, it has great adventure, and it has humanity.
Nothing ever in my life had the impact of Gunga Din, nothing.